You just wasted $3,000. Right now, sitting in your garage or closet, is a stockpile you think will keep you alive when World War III starts. You have freeze-dried meals that will last 25 years. You have night vision optics. You have a generator and 50 gallons of gasoline. You have tactical gear that makes you feel ready. And every single bit of it means nothing if you are missing 7 items that cost less than $100 total. Items so mundane, so unglamorous, so boring that 98% of preppers ignore them completely. And those 98% will be dead within 90 days of the first strike. Not because they lacked courage, not because they lacked resources, because they prepared for the wrong threats, because they bought what felt powerful instead of what actually works, because nobody told them that modern warfare does not kill you with bullets first. It kills you by destroying infrastructure, contaminating water supplies, cutting power grids, and turning every basic human need into a lethal challenge. Drop ready in the comments if you think your stockpile covers everything. Drop learning if you are honest enough to admit there might be gaps, because what comes next will either validate your preparation or completely shatter it. And I need you to understand something before we start. I am not selling you anything. I am not affiliated with any brands. What I am about to show you is based on historical analysis of every major conflict in the last century, on military survival data, on medical statistics from war zones, and on the simple, brutal math of what actually kills people when civilization collapses. The 7 items I am going to reveal are not sexy. They will not make you feel like a tactical operator. They will not impress anyone on prepper forums. But they will keep you alive when everything else fails. Let me paint you a picture of what World War III actually looks like. Not the Hollywood version with heroic soldiers and dramatic explosions. The real version that plays out in your neighborhood. Day 1, electromagnetic pulse or targeted cyber attacks take down the power grid. Your generator works for now, but gas stations cannot pump fuel without electricity. Day 3, municipal water systems fail because treatment plants have no power and backup systems are overwhelmed. Your tap runs dry or runs brown. Day 7. Supply chains have completely collapsed. Grocery stores have been empty since day 2. Pharmacies are cleaned out. Gas stations are dry. Day 14. Your neighborhood is dealing with the cascading failures nobody prepared for. Sewage systems are backing up. Trash is piling up. Disease vectors are multiplying. And this is not even accounting for kinetic strikes, refugee movements, or social breakdown. This is just the infrastructure collapse that happens automatically when the systems we depend on stop functioning. Now here's what kills people in this scenario, ranked by actual mortality data from recent conflict zones. Number 1 cause of death is not combat. It is waterborne illness and dehydration. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid, diseases you thought were medieval problems. They kill within days when clean water disappears. Number 2 is infection from minor injuries that turn septic without proper treatment. A cut, while opening it, can become blood poisoning. A blister becomes gangrene. Number 3 is malnutrition, specifically micronutrient deficiencies that destroy your immune system and cognitive function within weeks. Number 4 is exposure and inability to maintain core body temperature. Number 5 is chronic disease management failure for diabetics, asthmatics, and anyone dependent on daily medication. Combat deaths do not even crack the top 5. You know what prevents all 5 of those top killers? 7 items you can buy today for less than $15 each. Items you can store in a backpack. Items that require no power, no fuel, no special training. Items so simple that mentioning them feels almost insulting. Except they are the difference between you being a survivor and being a statistic. Item number 1 is water purification tablets. Not a fancy filter system. Not an ultraviolet purifier. Tablets. Specifically, chlorine dioxide tablets like Aquatabs or Potable Aqua. You can buy a bottle of 50 tablets for $12. Each tablet purifies 1 liter of water. That is 50 liters of clean drinking water from any source. Creek water, rainwater, even questionable tap water. You drop 1 tablet in, wait 30 minutes, and you have water that will not kill you. Now I know what you're thinking. You already have a water filter. You spent $200 on a Berkey or a Life Straw. Good. That is not enough. Filters clog. Filters break. Filters require maintenance and replacement parts. And when you are on the move, when you are displaced, when you are in a scenario where you cannot stay in your bug-out location, you cannot carry a ceramic filter system, but you can carry a bottle of tablets that weighs 2 ounces and fits in your pocket. Here is the science. Chlorine dioxide is a chemical oxidizer that destroys bacteria, viruses, and protozoa by disrupting their cellular function. It is effective against Giardia, Cryptosporidium, E. coli, cholera, and virtually every waterborne pathogen you will encounter. The U.S. military has used chlorine dioxide for field water purification for decades. Aid organizations use it in disaster zones worldwide. It works. It is proven. And it is so cheap that having backup bottles is not even a financial consideration. You buy 5 bottles. You store 1 in your bug-out bag, 1 in your vehicle, 1 in your home emergency kit, 1 in your get-home bag, and 1 in your cache or secondary location. Total cost? $60. Total water purification capacity? 250 liters per person. That is 83 days of drinking water if you are consuming 3 liters per day. 83 days where you do not die of cholera, while everyone around you is shitting themselves to death because they thought their expensive filter was enough. But water purification means nothing if you cannot start fire. Which brings us to item number 2. Ferrocerium rods. Not matches. Not lighters. Not flint and steel. Ferrocerium rods. You can buy a quality ferro rod for $8. It will generate thousands of sparks at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of weather conditions. It works when wet. It works in sub-zero temperatures. It works at altitude. It works after being submerged. And it will outlast 50 Bic lighters and 10,000 matches. Now here's what nobody tells you about fire in a collapse scenario. Fire is not just about staying warm. Fire purifies water through boiling when you do not have tablets. Fire sterilizes medical instruments. Fire signals for rescue. Fire provides psychological comfort that prevents mental breakdown. Fire creates smoke that repels insects carrying disease. Fire enables you to cook food, which prevents gastrointestinal illness from raw consumption. One ignition source is the difference between maintaining basic survival hygiene and dying from preventable illness. The science behind ferrocerium is simple but critical. It is an alloy primarily made of cerium and iron that produces hot sparks when scraped with a hard edge. Those sparks ignite tinder at temperatures high enough to work with damp materials that would never catch from a match or a lighter. And because the rod is solid metal, it does not leak, evaporate, or degrade over time. A 4-inch rod will last you 5,000 strikes. If you start 1 fire per day, that is 13 years of reliable ignition. Total cost? $8. And just like water tablets, you do not buy 1. You buy 5. 1 in every kit. 1 in every location. Because redundancy is what separates people who survive from people who watch their survival plan collapse because of a single point of failure. Here is a practical application most people miss. You need to practice with ferro rods now, not when the crisis hits. Right now, because striking a ferro rod effectively requires technique. You need the right striker angle. You need proper tinder preparation. You need to understand how to build a fire structure that catches from sparks rather than flame. If the first time you use a ferro rod is when you desperately need fire, you will fail. You will waste strikes. You will burn through your tinder without getting ignition, and you will panic. So you buy the rod today. You watch 3 YouTube tutorials, and you practice in your backyard this weekend until you can get a fire going under 2 minutes with natural tinder. That skill is worth more than every piece of tactical gear you own. Item number 3 is medical tape, not a first aid kit, not antibiotics, not bandages. Tape, specifically cloth medical tape like Johnson & Johnson first aid cloth tape. A roll costs $4, and it might be the most versatile item in this entire list. You use it to secure bandages, obviously, but you also use it to create makeshift sutures by taping wound edges together. You use it to stabilize sprains by creating support wraps. You use it to seal the edges of plastic sheeting for contamination barriers. You use it to repair torn gear and clothing. You use it to mark trails and locations. You use it to create friction barriers that prevent blisters. You use it to bundle items together. You use it to seal food containers. I have counted at least 40 practical applications for medical tape in survival scenarios, and I am sure there are more I have not thought of. The reason medical tape is so critical is because of injury probability. In any prolonged crisis, you will get hurt. It is not a question of if. It is a question of when. You will cut yourself. You will burn yourself. You will sprain something. You will develop blisters. You will tear clothing that needs repair. And in every single one of those scenarios, tape is the difference between a managed problem and a cascading failure. A small cut that gets properly secured with tape, and coverage stays clean and heals. The same cut left exposed in unsanitary conditions becomes infected. The infection becomes systemic. You develop fever and sepsis, and you die from something that should have been a non-issue. That is how people die in collapse scenarios, not from dramatic injuries, from minor problems that escalate because they lack the basic tools to manage them. Now, let me address what you are thinking. You are thinking this list is too simple. You are thinking I am going to reveal some secret item you have never heard of, some tactical gadget, some insider knowledge. And you are wrong. The secret is that there are no secrets. The items that save lives in war zones and disaster scenarios are boring, proven, and cheap. They are boring because they work so well that they became standard. They are proven because they have been tested across decades and continents. They are cheap because they are manufactured at scale for exactly these purposes. The psychological trap most preppers fall into is believing that effectiveness correlates with cost and complexity, that the more you spend and the more sophisticated the gear, the better prepared you are. It is a cognitive bias that the preparedness industry exploits ruthlessly. They sell you night vision for $3,000 when a $4 roll of tape will save your life 10 times before you ever need to see in the dark. Pause here. We have covered 3 items: water purification tablets, ferrocerium rods, medical tape. Total cost so far, $24. And we have already addressed the top 3 killers in collapse scenarios: waterborne illness, fire starting failure, infection from untreated injuries. Most people quit watching right here. They get impatient. They want me to get to the exciting stuff. If you're still here, comment "still here" right now, because items 4 through 7 are where this gets controversial, where I tell you things that will anger the prepper establishment, where I reveal what the tactical gear companies do not want you to know. Item number 4 is salt. Not food, not calories. Salt, sodium chloride. You can buy a 26-ounce container of iodized salt at any grocery store for $2. And that $2 container of salt is more valuable in prolonged crisis than 100 pounds of freeze-dried meals. Let me explain why. Your body loses sodium through sweat, through exertion, through stress. In a collapse scenario where you are hauling water, gathering firewood, standing watch, walking long distances, your sodium loss accelerates dramatically. And when your sodium levels drop, your body starts shutting down. You experience muscle cramps, mental confusion, weakness, irregular heartbeat, seizures, death. It is called hyponatremia, and it kills otherwise healthy people in disaster scenarios because they focus on hydration without electrolyte replacement. Salt also preserves food. You can salt cure meat and fish, extending their usable lifespan from days to months without refrigeration. You can create brine solutions that prevent bacterial growth in stored vegetables. You can use salt as a disinfectant for wounds in situations where you have no other options. The chemical properties of sodium chloride draw moisture out of bacterial cells through osmosis, killing them. It is not as effective as modern antiseptics, but it is infinitely better than nothing. And in a scenario where medical supplies are exhausted, salt water rinses prevent infections that would otherwise kill you. Here is the practical application. You need 5 pounds of salt per person for a 6-month scenario. That accounts for daily consumption, food preservation, and medical use. 5 pounds costs less than $5. You store it in airtight containers to prevent moisture absorption and clumping. And you make sure it's iodized salt, not sea salt or kosher salt, because the iodine prevents thyroid dysfunction when your diet becomes limited. Iodine deficiency causes goiter, cognitive impairment, and metabolic disorders. It is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies in collapse scenarios, and it is completely preventable with iodized salt. Item number 5 is a manual can opener, not an electric one, not a multi-tool with can opener attachment. A dedicated P38 or P51 military style can opener. You can buy a 10-pack for $6. And before you roll your eyes, before you tell me you already have one, let me ask you this. Where is it? Is it in every bag, every kit, every location? Or is it in one place? And when you're displaced or separated from that location, you have access to can food you cannot open? I have read after-action reports from Hurricane Katrina, from the Bosnian War, from the Syrian conflict, people starving with kin food in front of them because they could not get it open, people trying to use knives and rocks and destroying the food in the process, people cutting themselves and developing infections because they tried to improvise. The P38 opener weighs a fraction of an ounce. It is 2 inches long. It opens any can in 30 seconds with minimal effort. And it is so cheap that you can put one on every keychain, in every bag, in every vehicle, and in every kit without even noticing the cost. This is what redundancy looks like at the micro level. You do not have one critical item. You have 10, so that when you lose one, when you loan one out, when one breaks or gets left behind, you are never without the capability. Item number 6 is a headlamp, not a flashlight, a headlamp. Specifically, a basic LED headlamp with AAA batteries. You can find them for $10. And the reason a headlamp is superior to a flashlight is because it keeps your hands free. You can treat a wound with both hands while illuminating the area. You can repair equipment. You can cook. You can navigate. You can defend yourself if necessary. A flashlight requires one hand, which cuts your functionality in half. In survival scenarios, your hands are your most valuable tools. Anything that keeps them both operational is a force multiplier. The practical application here is about both lighting and battery strategy. LED headlamps are incredibly efficient. A quality one will give you 40 to 60 hours of runtime on a single set of batteries. You buy the headlamp and you buy $50 worth of AAA batteries. Not rechargeable batteries. Not a solar charging system. Regular alkaline batteries with a 10-year shelf life. You store them properly. You rotate them every 5 years, and you have reliable illumination for months. Because here is what people do not think about. Darkness is not just inconvenient. Darkness is dangerous. You cannot see threats. You cannot navigate safely. You cannot perform tasks that require precision. Your psychological state deteriorates when you are trapped in darkness for extended periods. Light is a survival necessity that ranks just below water and shelter. But here is where most people mess this up. They buy one good headlamp and think they are covered. Wrong. You need 4. 1 for you, 1 for your spouse or a primary group member. 2 backups. Why 2 backups? Because electronics fail. LEDs burn out. Straps break. And in a prolonged scenario, you cannot replace them. So you redundancy stack the critical items at a level that accounts for failure rates over time. For headlamps at $10, each is $40. Add $50 in batteries. You have $90 invested in a lighting system that will keep you operational for a year. Compare that to a $200 tactical flashlight with proprietary rechargeable batteries that becomes useless the moment charging infrastructure is gone. Real talk. How many of you spent more on your EDC flashlight than on your entire lighting backup strategy? Drop a hand emoji if that is you. You are not alone. The tactical gear industry has convinced people that expensive equals effective. And sometimes that is true. But in survival scenarios, reliability and redundancy trump performance specifications every single time. The best gear is the gear that works when everything else has failed. The gear that does not require special knowledge or special conditions. The gear that a 10-year-old could operate in the dark while stressed and scared. Item number 7 is the one that will make you question everything. The one that sounds so absurdly simple that you will think I am joking. But I am not. Item number 7 is garbage bags. Heavy-duty black plastic garbage bags. Contractor grade, 3 mil thickness. A box of 20 costs $8. And those 20 bags have more utility in a survival scenario than half the gear in your average prepper's closet. Let me count the ways. You use them as rain ponchos by cutting head and arm holes. You use them as waterproof pack liners to protect gear and supplies. You use them to collect and store rainwater. You use them as ground insulation between you and cold surfaces. You use them as emergency shelters by filling them with leaves or grass for insulation walls. You use them for waste management and sanitation. You use them to transport supplies. You use them as signaling devices. You use them as vapor barriers inside clothing for warmth. You use them to cover broken windows. You use them to create solar stills for water collection. You use them as body bags when someone dies and you need to manage disease transmission. That last one is dark. I know, but it is real. In prolonged collapse scenarios, people die. And if you cannot bear them immediately, if the ground is frozen or you lack tools or the situation is too dangerous, you need a way to contain bodies to prevent disease spread. Garbage bags serve that function. They are also critical for sanitation in scenarios where toilets do not work. You line a bucket with a garbage bag. You use it as a toilet. You tie it off and dispose of it away from your living area. This prevents disease transmission that has killed more people throughout human history than every war combined. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, all fecal-oral transmission diseases that spread when sanitation collapses. A $8 box of garbage bags prevents that. Now, let me synthesize all 7 items into a coherent framework. Water purification tablets keep you from dying of waterborne illness. Ferrocerium rods enable you to boil water as backup, cook food, stay warm, and maintain hygiene through fire. Medical tape manages injuries and prevents infection. Salt maintains electrolyte balance, preserves food, and provides emergency disinfection. Can openers ensure you can access canned food supplies? Headlamps keep your hands free and provide safe illumination. Garbage bags handle shelter, water collection, insulation, and sanitation. Total cost for all 7 items with redundancy factored in, under $100. Coverage of survival necessities: water, fire, shelter, food access, medical care, illumination, and sanitation. That is a complete hierarchy of needs addressed with items that fit in a backpack and require zero special training. Now here is what makes this controversial. Everything I just described contradicts the mainstream prepper narrative. You've been told to buy guns, gold, and generators, to invest in expensive freeze-dried food and tactical gear, to build bug-out locations with solar panels and water filtration systems. And all of that is value. I am not saying those things are useless. I am saying they are secondary. They are what you invest in after you have covered the basics. Because the harsh reality is that most people never face a scenario where they need night vision, or a ham radio, or a year of freeze-dried meals. But every single person who experiences infrastructure collapse will face contaminated water, fire-starting challenges, minor injuries, nutritional deficiencies, darkness, and sanitation failure. These are not hypothetical threats. They are statistical certainties. Let me give you historical proof. Sarajevo Siege, 1992 to 1996. 377 days of urban warfare and complete infrastructure collapse. Researchers conducted interviews with survivors years later asking what items were most valuable. The list? Lighters and fire-starting tools. Water purification methods. Medical supplies, especially bandages and tape. Salt for food preservation. Plastic sheeting in bags. Batteries and simple lights. Manual tools including can openers. None of the survivors mentioned wishing they had more guns. None mentioned needing tactical gear. Because they learned the brutal lesson that you cannot shoot your way out of thirst, cold, hunger, or infection. Syrian civil war. Multiple aid organizations have published reports on survival patterns in besieged areas. The items that saved lives were water purification, basic first aid, fire-starting capability, and sanitation supplies. The items that became worthless were luxury goods, complex electronics that could not be powered or repaired, and yes, even ammunition after the first few months, because conserving energy and avoiding conflict became more important than fighting. The people who survived were not the best armed. They were the ones who maintained basic hygiene, secured clean water, prevented infection, and stayed psychologically functional through maintaining routines and basic comforts like light and warmth. Now, let me bring this to the World War III scenario specifically. Modern warfare targets infrastructure first. Power grids, water treatment facilities, communication networks, transportation hubs. The goal is not to kill populations directly. The goal is to create collapse conditions that force capitulation, which means that if World War III happens, the first things that disappear are the systems you depend on for daily survival, not in some distant war zone, in your city, your neighborhood, your house. And when that happens, when you turn the tap and nothing comes out, when you flip the switch and the lights stay off, when you go to the store and the shelves are empty, you will have exactly two options. You either have the basic items necessary to manage those conditions, or you become a refugee dependent on aid that may never come. What I am about to say will anger the tactical prepping community. If you are ready for the uncomfortable truth they do not want you to hear, hit the like button right now, because here it is. The preparedness industry does not want you to know that $100 worth of simple items will save your life before your $3,000 rifle ever gets used. They cannot make money selling you $8 bags and $4 tape, so they sell you fear and fantasy. They sell you the hero narrative, the lone wolf, the tactical operator, and you buy it because it feels good, because it feeds your ego, because spending money on expensive gear makes you feel like you're doing something. But doing something and doing the right thing are not the same. I want you to perform a thought experiment right now. Imagine World War III starts tomorrow. Power is out. Water is off. Stores are empty. You have exactly what you currently own. No resupply. No Amazon deliveries. What you have is what you get. Now, mentally go through your stockpile. Do you have water purification that does not require electricity or complex equipment? Do you have reliable fire starting that works in any weather? Do you have medical supplies to manage injuries? Do you have salt for nutrition and preservation? Do you have can openers in multiple locations? Do you have hands-free lighting with long-term battery supplies? Do you have sanitation solutions? If you answered no to any of those questions, you have critical gaps that will kill you faster than anything a foreign military does. And here's the brutal truth. 90% of preppers have those gaps. They have $5,000 invested in gear and supplies, but they are missing a $4 can opener. They have night vision, but no basic medical tape. They have a year of freeze-dried food, but no salt for electrolyte balance. They optimize for Hollywood scenarios instead of historical reality. And when the crisis actually happens, they are going to learn the hard way that preparation is not about accumulating stuff. It is about identifying the most likely failure points and addressing them with proven solutions. So what do you do with this information? You do 3 things this week. First, you make a list of the 7 items and you verify whether you have them in sufficient quantities with proper redundancy. Not 1, not 2, multiple units in multiple locations. Second, you calculate the total cost to fill any gaps. It will be under $100. You order them today. Not next week, not next month, today, because the window for easy preparation is closing. Supply chains are strained. Geopolitical tensions are escalating. And if World War III starts, you will not get a warning. You will not have time to order supplies. Third, you practice with these items. You purify water with the tablets. You start fires with the ferro rod. You use the tape for various applications. You create muscle memory so that when stress is high and stakes are lethal, you can execute automatically. Let me tell you what separates survivors from casualties. It is not intelligence. It is not physical fitness. It is not even resources. It is a willingness to accept uncomfortable truths and act on them before everyone else figures it out. Right now, you are part of a tiny minority that has this information. Most people will never see this video. Most who do will dismiss it because it contradicts their existing beliefs. Most who believe it will fail to act. You have the opportunity to be different, To be the person who prepared correctly while everyone else was chasing fantasies. To be the one who survives while others become statistics. And I want to be clear about something. This is not a guarantee. Having these 7 items does not ensure survival. Nothing does. War is chaos. Collapse is unpredictable. Random chance kills prepared people and spares unprepared ones. But preparation is about probability, not certainty. It is about improving your odds. And these 7 items improve your survival probability more per dollar spent than anything else you can buy. They address the most common failure points with proven solutions that require minimal training and no ongoing inputs. That is the definition of smart preparation. Let me give you the final piece of the framework. These 7 items are your foundation. They are what you acquire first, what you redundancy stack, and what you verify you have before you spend another dollar on preparedness. Once you have them, once you have confirmed you can use them effectively, then you start building the next layer. Then you invest in longer-term food storage, in more sophisticated water filtration, in medical training and supplies, in communication equipment, in security tools. You build in layers from most critical to least critical, from most likely needed to least likely needed. And you never lose sight of the fact that the basics matter more than the advanced stuff. Honest question. What is the one item from this list you are buying this week? Comment below. I read every single one. And if you think I am wrong about any of these 7 items, good. Drop your alternative. Best comment gets pinned and a detailed response. Because I want you to think critically. I want you to challenge these ideas. But I also want you to base your strategy on evidence and historical reality, not on what feels tactical or looks cool. If this video saved you from wasting money on the wrong priorities, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Not for me, for them. Because they deserve to know the truth before it is too late. Stay informed, stay prepared, or stay a casualty. Your choice. One more thing. See that progress bar? Not quite done yet. 99% leave before this final piece. The 1% who stay get the bonus most people miss. The single biggest strategic mistake preppers make that gets them killed in the first week. It is not what you think. Comment inner circle if you are still here. Welcome to the 1% who actually survive. The mistake is static positioning. Preppers build bug-out locations and stockpiles assuming they can get to them and stay there. But modern warfare creates refugee flows. Civilian populations get displaced by combat, by contamination, by roving threats. And the moment you are forced to abandon your stockpile, your survival depends entirely on what you can carry. Which is why every item on this list is portable. Why redundancy means having supplies in multiple locations, including on your person. The survivors are not the ones with the biggest stockpiles. They are the ones with the knowledge, skills, and lightweight critical items that enable mobility. Remember that. Prepare accordingly.